My name is Evelyn, and I am 72 years old. Yesterday, my own daughter created a poll about me. It all started when my 15-year-old granddaughter, Keisha, bounced into my kitchen. I was just taking a pie out of the oven, the smell of cinnamon filling my Atlanta home. "Grandma, check this out," she said, that wicked little grin she has playing on her lips. She held her phone up to my face, the screen glaring. I squinted, wiping my hands on my apron. And there it was. A picture Rhonda, my daughter, must have taken last Sunday at the family barbecue. I was distracted, serving food, caught mid-sentence. It was an awful photo, capturing the loose skin under my chin and a tired expression. Below it, the poll. "What's worse?" it read. "My mom's witchy turkey neck, or her irritating voice?" My breath hitched. The votes were already at 238. But the comments. The comments were what stopped my heart. My son-in-law, Marcus, had written, "Definitely the voice. At least she can cover her neck with a scarf." My own son, my boy, Andre. He had put, "Why can't both options be the winner?" Even my daughter-in-law, Monique, had chimed in. About time someone said it. Hello, everyone. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. It keeps our stories alive. I read every single one, my blood turning to ice. Neighbors, people from our church, distant relatives, all leaving laughing emojis, all treating my dignity like a joke. My 72 years of life, my sacrifices, my unconditional love for this family, all reduced to a turkey neck and a voice that bothered them. Keisha was still giggling beside me, oblivious. "It's super viral, Grandma. It already has more than 1,000 shares." Viral. My humiliation was viral. I handed the phone back to my granddaughter. My hand was perfectly steady. I forced a smile onto my lips. A smile so tight, it must have looked like a grimace. "How?" "Very interesting, sweetie. Very interesting." She couldn't interpret my tone. She just snatched the phone back and ran off, probably to tell her mother that Grandma had seen the poll and thought it was funny. I stood alone in my kitchen, the scent of cinnamon suddenly making me sick. The smile evaporated from my face. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt something I had never experienced in my entire life. A cold, calculating calm that rose from the pit of my stomach and settled over my mind like a shroud. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't even anger. It was pure, unadulterated determination. I had been the fool for too long, the family bank, the free babysitter, the woman who swallowed insults with a smile. They had all been thinking this, laughing at me in private. I looked at my reflection in the dark glass of the oven door. After 72 years, if they want to see a witch, they were going to meet the real one. I walked out of the kitchen, leaving the cinnamon pie on the counter to grow cold. The sweet smell of it, a smell that usually meant family and comfort, now felt like a mockery. I sat down in my living room, my legs feeling weak. I sank into the cushions of the sofa I'd had reupholstered twice. The last time was after Keisha, as a toddler, had spilled a whole bottle of red juice on it. I hadn't even scolded her. My house. This Atlanta home. It was my fortress. The one thing I had built and paid for all by myself after my James passed. God rest his soul. I looked at the mantelpiece, at the silver frame photo of James. He looked so young, so handsome. He'd been gone 30 years. Next to his photo was the one I cherished most. Rhonda and Andre, side by side, beaming in their matching college caps and gowns. My eyes lingered on that photo. The memory of that day is sharp as glass. I remembered standing at my husband's graveside, the red Georgia clay damp and sticky under my shoes. I was a young woman then, barely 42. I felt like my life was over, but I looked down and I was holding two small, trembling hands. Rhonda, 8 years old, was on my right. Andre, just 6, was on my left. Their faces were pale, stained with tears they didn't understand. I knelt on that damp clay in my black dress, and I pulled them close. I made them a promise. Your daddy is gone, I whispered, my voice thick. But I am here. I will always be here. You will never ever want for anything. I will give you the world. I promise you. And I had spent the next 30 years of my life trying to keep that promise. I went from being a wife to being a warrior. I was a nurse, a good one, at the main hospital. But one salary wasn't enough for the world I had promised them. So I picked up double shifts. I remember those years as a blur of white uniforms and fluorescent lights. I'd come home when the sun was just starting to peek over the Atlanta skyline, my feet aching so badly I'd just sit in the car for 10 minutes, trying to find the strength to walk to my own front door. I'd walk in, the house dark and quiet. I'd make their breakfast, pack their lunches, get them dressed and ready for school. I'd kiss them goodbye, my heart aching with love and exhaustion. And then I'd fall into bed for 3, maybe 4 hours before the alarm would ring, and it was time to get up and do it all over again. I gave up everything. My friends stopped calling because I always said no. I have to work. I'm sorry. I stopped buying clothes for myself, wearing my nursing shoes until the soles were paper thin and smooth. My dinners, night after night, were often just toast and tea, standing over the kitchen sink so I could save every extra penny for their college funds. I sacrificed every dream I ever had for myself. I wanted to travel. I wanted to go back to school, maybe become a doctor. I put all of it in a box, locked it, and put it away. I put my life on hold so theirs could begin. And I did it gladly. I did it out of love. I would have walked through fire for those children. I sat there, on my sofa, the pole burning a hole in my mind. That was the woman they were laughing at. The woman whose life was boring. The woman whose voice was irritating. The woman who had given them the world, only to have them reduce her to a turkey neck. That cold, clear certainty settled over me again. The love was still there, but it was now covered by a thick, new layer of ice. They had forgotten who I was. They had forgotten what I was capable of. They had forgotten that the same woman who had the strength to build their world also had the strength to burn it all down. That cold calm wasn't an emotion. It wasn't accounting. As I sat there on my sofa, my mind began to work with a speed I hadn't had in years. It was no longer foggy with blind affection. It was running an audit. It began listing, line by line, why they felt entitled to do this. They weren't laughing at their mother. They were laughing at their supply. My mind focused on Rhonda first, my daughter. I remembered 5 years ago, her coming to me, crying about her maxed out credit cards. Just as a backup, Mom, she'd pleaded, just in case of an emergency, I swear. I had agreed. I always agreed. I added her as an authorized user on my primary credit card. An emergency. I'd seen the statements. Emergencies had become $100 brunches with her friends. Emergencies were new shoes I knew she couldn't afford. Emergencies were nail appointments, hair salons, and weekend getaways she just needed for a break. All of it linked directly to my bank account. She didn't even bother to hide it. She didn't respect me enough to be discreet. Then my mind turned to Andre, my son, my boy. He'd lost that good job in marketing 2 years ago. Just temporary, Mom, he told me, his voice full of shame. I just need a little help to get back on my feet. Just a few months. I had set up an automatic transfer, $500, the first of every month, regular as sunrise. 2 years had passed. Andre was consulting, he said, but that $500 was no longer help. It was his allowance, an expectation. He'd even called me last month, irritated. "Mom, is the transfer late? It's the 1st." He didn't ask. He demanded. My gaze drifted out the living room window to my garage, or as my son-in-law, Marcus, called it, the warehouse. I couldn't park my own car in it. My car sat out on the street, baking in the Georgia sun and the summer rain, because my garage was packed to the ceiling with dusty boxes of auto parts, old tires, and greasy engine blocks for his business. 4 years. 4 years he hadn't paid a dime in rent. When I had gently mentioned it once, he just laughed. "Come on, Evelyn," he'd said, patting my shoulder. "It's just the garage. Don't be stingy." Stingy. And finally, Monique, my daughter-in-law. Last year, she came to me in tears. She needed cosmetic surgery. Something about her nose. Something she claimed was vital for her self-esteem. It cost $8,000. I had drained my emergency savings account to pay for it. The account I had spent 10 years building in case my old roof finally gave out. I had just seen a water stain on my attic ceiling the week before. I had paid for it. And she had thanked me by posting laughing emojis on that pole. I picked up my phone. The screen was still dark. I realized the hard truth. I wasn't their mother. I wasn't their mother-in-law. I was a building they all held a key to. Rhonda had the credit card key. Andre had the bank transfer key. Marcus had the garage key. Monique had the savings account key. They had taken everything they wanted. And now they were laughing at the very building they were plundering. "That's all right," I whispered to the empty room. "A good landlord always knows when it's time to change the locks." That pole wasn't the first knife. It was just the final public twist. As I sat there, the betrayal settling like silt, my mind began to flip backward through the pages to the smaller cuts, the wounds I had bandaged myself in silence, the disrespect. It had been seeping into my home for years, like a poison vine, and I had been too busy loving to notice it was choking me. My mind landed on an image, 10 years ago, at Keisha's 5th birthday party. I had been in the kitchen for 2 days. I had baked a 3-layer strawberry cake, her favorite. I'd made little animals out of fondant by hand. I decorated the whole house in pink and silver balloons. I was carrying the cake out, the candles lit. I was so proud. I paused in the kitchen doorway, just long enough to hear Rhonda's bright voice from the patio. She was talking to the other young mothers, the ones sipping my wine. "Oh, my mom just goes way overboard with these parties," she'd said, with a light, dismissive laugh. "I think she lives vicariously through her grandkids. You know, her own life has been pretty boring. The flames on the candles flickered. My life. The life I'd given up my dreams to pay for her college. The life I'd worked double shifts to keep a roof over their heads. The life I'd cried myself to sleep alone after James died, so I could be strong for them in the daylight. That life was boring. I felt the hot flush of blood in my cheeks. But what did I do? I took a deep breath. I plastered a bright smile on my face. I walked out onto the patio singing "Happy Birthday." I swallowed it. Like I always did. That night, after everyone had left, as I was soaking the sticky, cake-covered plates in the sink, I'd asked her, "Rhonda, why did you say that? About me being boring?" "Oh, Mom," she'd said, not even looking up from her phone. "Don't be so sensitive. It was just casual conversation. My pain, my life. Just casual conversation." My mind jumped to another dinner. 2 years ago, Andre was finally bringing Monique home for dinner. I wanted everything to be perfect. I'd made my special pot roast, the one he'd loved as a boy. Monique seemed nice. She was asking me questions about my days as a nurse, about my work, my interests. I was telling her a story, one I was proud of, about a difficult case back in the 80s, A young man we had saved when everyone else had given up. I was in the middle of the story when Andre cut me off. "Okay, Mom, that's enough," he'd said with a strained laugh. He turned to Monique. "Don't get her talking too much or she won't stop." He turned back to me, still smiling. "You have a habit of turning any conversation into a monologue about the past. It's your only party trick." A party trick. My life's work was a party trick. The room had gone quiet. I could feel Monique's eyes on me, embarrassed. I kept my smile. I looked down at my plate, at the pot roast that had suddenly gone cold. "More potatoes, Monique?" I'd asked, my voice soft. I swallowed it. I smiled. I continued to serve the dinner. And now, this pole. I opened my eyes, back in my living room. What was the difference? The difference was I had swallowed those private humiliations to keep the peace. They had taken my humiliation public. They had invited the world to join in. And in doing so, they had single-handedly broken the peace I had worked so hard to maintain. They had changed the rules, and I realized that set me free too. I picked up my phone again. The screen felt cold in my hand. If I was going to act, I needed to know the full scope of the betrayal. I couldn't afford to be blind anymore. I couldn't afford to be sensitive. I opened the poll. The votes had climbed, 841. I took a deep breath and I started to read. One comment at a time. I made myself memorize every name, every carefully disguised insult. I reread the first one, the one that had stopped my breath. Marcus, Rhonda's husband, the man using my garage as a free warehouse, the man I had paid rent for when he was unemployed. Definitely the voice. At least she can cover her neck with a scarf. He had written it publicly, for all to see. I scrolled. Andre, my son, my boy, the one I had given up vacations to send to college. Why can't both options be the winner? He thought it was clever, witty. He was making a joke about his mother for strangers on the internet. Monique, my daughter-in-law, the woman with the $8,000 nose I had paid for. About time someone said it. LMAO. Her gratitude was overwhelming, but the betrayal didn't stop there. It spread, like a sickness. I saw a name that made my heart seize. Shirley, my sister, my blood. Shirley had written, "Evelyn has always been so dramatic. She thinks she's a saint. Now I see why my kids don't want to visit her much." Dramatic. There was that word again. The word they used to gag me. The word that meant, your feelings are invalid. My sister. The one I had loaned $3,000 to last year when her husband lost his job. The one whose secrets I had kept for years. She thought I was dramatic. The chill wasn't a calm anymore. It was ice. I kept scrolling. Mr. Henderson, my neighbor from across the street. The one who comes over for sugar. The one who borrows my ladder every fall. The one who always finds a way to linger for dinner when he smells my cooking. He hadn't commented. He had simply liked the post. He liked my humiliation. Then, the church people. Sister Mary Ann, the head of the choir. Deacon Charles, who always shook my hand so firmly on Sundays and said, "God bless you, Sister Evelyn. You are a pillar of this community." Both of them. Both had left laughing emojis. They were laughing. My whole community, my family, my friends. They were all laughing at me. 841 votes. Hundreds of comments. Thousands of shares. Keisha was right. My humiliation was viral. I turned the phone off. I placed its screen down on the coffee table. The room was utterly silent. I couldn't hear the birds outside. I couldn't hear the traffic. I could only hear one single truth repeating in my head, loud as a church bell. They all think this. They all agree. That truth. It erased the 72-year-old sensitive, dramatic Evelyn. It unleashed something else. something much, much colder, and she knew exactly what to do. I sat there, in the dark, as the sun went down outside my window. The silence in my living room was heavy. I had expected tears. I had expected a hot, screaming rage. I had expected a crippling grief. None of it came. Instead, that icy focus, the one that had risen in me from the kitchen, now solidified. It wasn't a feeling anymore. It was a decision. For 72 years, I had played the role of the loving matriarch, the giver, the peacemaker. I was the glue. And in return, I was their joke. I was their turkey neck. All right, I whispered to the empty room. If they want to see a witch, they are going to meet the real one. I did not sleep that night, not 1 minute. I did not pace the floors. I did not wring my hands. I sat at my desk with a pad of paper and a pen. I did not just react. I acted. I planned. I planned every step. The bank, the accounts, the ledger, the phone calls. My mind, which had been foggy with love for years, was now sharp as a razor. I was not a dramatic old woman. I was a head nurse who had run an intensive care unit for 20 years. I was used to making life and death decisions. This, I realized, was one of them. When the first gray light of dawn crept through my curtains, I stood up. I showered, the hot water washing away the last remnants of the weak, accommodating woman I used to be. I walked to my closet. I pushed past the sensible cardigans and the comfortable house dresses. I reached for the dress in the very back, my Sunday best, an emerald green silk dress, the one I had bought for Andre's wedding. I remembered spending $300 on it, money I didn't have. I remember telling myself it was worth it, because I wanted to look respectable for Monique's wealthy family. I wanted my son to be proud of me. Now I knew, from the comments, that they had laughed at it, that Rhonda thought I looked gaudy in it. Perfect. I slipped it on. The silk was cool and smooth against my skin. I sat at my vanity. I carefully did my hair, pinning it up in a neat chignon. I put on makeup, something I hadn't done in months. Foundation, a little blush, and finally, a dark, strong red lipstick. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back was not a victim. She was not a joke. Her eyes were cold. Her mouth was set. She was a creditor, and she was here to collect. I picked up my phone. My first call was not to my children. I dialed the private line of my bank manager. "Good morning, Martha. This is Evelyn Price," I said, my voice steady and clear, not a trace of a wobble. "I need to see you this morning at 9. "Is it an emergency, Evelyn?" she asked. I looked at my reflection. "Yes," I said. "It's a liquidation." I walked into the bank at 8:58 a.m. The marble floor echoed with the click-clack of my heels. I wasn't wearing my comfortable nursing shoes. I was wearing the black pumps I saved for funerals and weddings. I wore that emerald green silk dress like a suit of armor. My head was held high. I felt the eyes of the tellers, of the other customers. They were probably thinking, "Look at that old woman, all dressed up like she's going to a party." Let them look. Mrs. Davis, the bank manager, came out from her office. She'd known me for 20 years. She'd handled my mortgage, my children's college funds. "Evelyn," she said, her professional smile faltering a bit. She was probably expecting me in a beige cardigan. "It's so good to see you. You look wonderful." "Good morning, Martha," I said. She led me into her glass office. "I'm sorry for the rush," she said. "You said it was a liquidation. Is something wrong with James's estate?" "No," I said, placing my handbag firmly on the opposite chair. "This liquidation is mine." As she sat and logged into her computer, my phone buzzed in my bag. A new notification, a new comment on the poll. As she was typing, I pulled out the phone. I had to know. It was a comment from Andre, a new one from this morning. after he was surely aware I'd seen it. He was replying to a stranger, "My mom lives in a fantasy world where she thinks we're a close family. But the truth is, we only go to her house because she's a good cook and always has money to lend. If it weren't for that, believe me, we wouldn't put up with her melodramas." Melodramas. My grief for his father, my worry when he had pneumonia, my love. They were melodramas he had to put up with in exchange for my food and my money. The click of the office door closing made me look up. "All right, Evelyn," Mrs. Davis said, turning to her screen. "The system is up. Where would you like to start?" I took a slow, deep breath. The cold air of the bank filled my lungs. The heat was gone, leaving only ice. "First," I said, my voice even and clear, "I want to cancel all automatic monthly transfers from my checking account, specifically the one for $500 to Andre Price." Mrs. Davis's fingers paused on her keyboard. She looked at me over her glasses. "Andre, is he all right?" "He's perfectly healthy," I replied. "Cancel it. Effective immediately." She typed, a small frown line appearing between her brows. "Done. What's next?" "Second, I have a joint checking account with my daughter, Rhonda. I want to close it, right now, and transfer the full balance to my primary savings." This time, Mrs. Davis put her pen down. "Evelyn, that account is linked to her debit card, isn't it? If you close it, she won't be able to buy gas or groceries." "I am aware," I said. "Close the account." Her professional look was gone, replaced by real concern. "Evelyn, these are very significant changes." "I'm not finished," I said. "Third, the supplementary credit card on my main account, the one used by Rhonda and my daughter-in-law, Monique. I want them blocked, permanently." Mrs. Davis was just staring at me now. "And finally," I said, my voice as cold as the marble floor, "my savings account. I believe my son-in-law, Marcus, has access to it for business emergencies. I want that access revoked immediately." Mrs. Davis leaned back, her chair creaking. She took off her glasses. "Evelyn, please, can you tell me what's going on? Are you being coerced?" I almost laughed. "Coerced? Oh no, Martha, I'm doing the opposite." I smiled. It was a tight, joyless smile. "This is just some long overdue financial housekeeping. Now," I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a confidential steel whisper, "I need you to print the statements for all of those accounts for the last 5 years." I walked out of the bank, the thick manila envelope under my arm. 5 years of abuse, itemized in black and white. I drove home. I did not speed. I did not go slow. I obeyed every speed limit. I came to a full stop at every stop sign. That steady, focused state was like a shell. I parked my car neatly in the driveway, right behind Marcus's truck that he'd left there, blocking my garage. I looked at it. $14,400, I whispered. I walked into my quiet house. I did not turn on the TV. I did not make tea. The cinnamon smell from yesterday's abandoned pie was still there, but it had gone sour. I went straight to my study, to James's old roll-top desk. It was my sanctuary, the one place in the house the grandkids were not allowed to touch. From my jewelry box, the one James gave me on our 10th anniversary, I took a small brass key. I knelt, the silk of my emerald green dress pooling on the floor. I put the key in the bottom right drawer. It made a small, sharp click. Inside, beneath my faded nursing diplomas, was a thick, leather-bound book. A simple accounting ledger. Its cover was soft with time. This was not a notebook. This was my history. This was the record of my sacrifice. My mother had taught me, always know what you are owed, Evelyn, even if you never ask for it. I carried the ledger and the manila envelope to my large polished dining room table. The table I had served so many boring dinners on. I set them down, the old ledger, the new statements, the past and the present. I opened the ledger. The pages smelled of old paper and ink. I was ready. I turned to the page marked Rhonda. My eyes scanned the entries. The first one was from 2019. March 10th, loan for house down payment. My note read, $10,000. I remembered her words exactly. Just to get us started, Mom, I swear. I'll pay you back in a year. That was 4 years ago. Then I took a fresh page. I picked up my pen. I wrote childcare. I'd done the math in my head on the drive. Now I would write it down. 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, minimum. 2 children for the last 4 years. I would set a modest rate, $20 an hour, half of what a real Atlanta nanny service would charge. My fingers flew on the calculator. The click, click, click was the only sound in the room. $41,600. I whispered it. The number staggered me. I wrote it down. I turned the page. Andre. I saw the entry. June 2020, car loan, $5,000. Just to get to interviews, Mom. Then I looked at the bank statements, page after page. Transfer, A price, $500. Transfer, A price, $500. On and on, for 24 months. $12,000, I wrote. The price, for my melodramas. Next page. Monique. April 2021, medical loan, surgery. $8,000. I remembered my emergency savings account draining to zero. And finally, Marcus. I'd looked it up online. A 2-car garage storage unit in our part of Atlanta, $350 a month. Easy. I would be generous. I wrote, $300 a month. My pen moved. Times 48 months. $14,400. I put the pen down. My hand was perfectly steady. I picked up the calculator. I began to add the large numbers. 10,000 plus 41,600 plus 5,000 plus 12,000 plus 8,000 plus 14,400. I hit the Alt button. The final number glowed on the small green screen. $91,000. I took one slow, deep breath. I picked up my red ink pen. I wrote the total at the bottom of the page in large, clear numbers. I underlined it twice. I closed the ledger. The sound of the leather cover thudding shut was final. This was not a ledger. It was a weapon. I sat at my dining room table, the ledger open. The $91,000 in red ink seemed to stare up at me. I was ready. I picked up my phone. My thumb scrolled through my contacts, pausing on the name Rhonda. I was about to press dial. I had my words prepared, but then the screen lit up. An incoming call. Rhonda. A thin, cold smile touched my lips. Speak of the devil, I murmured. I let it ring twice. A short silence to remind myself. No retreat, no surrender. On the third ring, I answered. I softened my voice, finding that familiar, warm mom tone she expected. Hello, Rhonda, dear. Hey, Mom. Her voice was breezy, cheerful, utterly oblivious, as if the pole never existed. I'm glad I caught you. Listen, I'm swamped, but Marcus and I want to go to a movie on Thursday night. And you know, she giggled, a sound that now set my teeth on edge. We just don't have money for a sitter. Could you watch the kids? Say, 7? She wasn't asking. She was informing me. As always. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Melodramas. Money to lend. Of course, honey, I said, my voice sweet as molasses. I have no problem watching them. I heard the small sigh of relief on her end. Oh, you're a lifesaver, Mom. I knew you'd understand. We'll drop them off at 6:30. Just one small change in policy, dear. I continued in that same pleasant tone. My new fee. Huh? What fee? She laughed. You're funny, Mom. My new fee is $40 an hour, per child. I paused, letting the silence stretch. You have two, so that will be $80 an hour. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy, total. I could hear her sharp, sudden intake of breath. What? She sputtered. Mom, are you kidding me? That's $80 an hour. Are you serious? I'm perfectly serious, I replied calmly. If you go to a movie and then dinner, I'd estimate 4 hours. That will be $320. I glanced at the ledger. Payable in advance, of course. Cash or Zelle is fine. Mom! Her voice was a shriek now, all fake cheer gone. You have never charged me to watch your kids. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? She paused, and I heard the realization hit her. Oh, my God, this is about that stupid poll, isn't it? I told Keisha not to show you. It was just a joke, Mom. A joke. A joke, I repeated. The word was flat in my mouth. How very funny. You're right, Rhonda, I said, and my voice began to change. The sweetness evaporated, leaving something hard and cold underneath. I never charged you. That was my mistake. But I've discovered that witches with irritating voices have bills to pay, dear. You understand. Mom, I didn't mean... Oh, and while I have you... I cut her off. Since we're discussing finances, we need to discuss the other matter. What matter? What are you talking about? The $10,000 loan I gave you for your house down payment. The one you said you'd pay back in a year. I heard a choked sob. Mom, that was 4 years ago. I thought I'd forgiven it? No, it was a loan, and payment is long overdue. I'll be expecting a payment plan, I said, my voice all head nurse now. In writing, by Friday, along with the first payment for childcare, if you still need me. I heard her start to wail, not a cry of sadness, but a cry of angry, panicked frustration. I did not wait to hear it. I pressed the end call button. The silence filled the dining room. It was wonderful. One down. I looked at the ledger. Andre was next. I didn't even pause to take a breath. The silence from Rhonda's call was so satisfying, but I was not done. My thumb moved to the next name on my contact list. Andre. I tapped the screen. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Of course. He was letting it go to voicemail. I was about to hang up and try again when he picked up on the 4th ring, sounding winded. Mom, what's up? He said, slightly annoyed. I could hear explosions and shouting in the background, one of his video games. Am I interrupting your game? I asked. Huh? Yeah, I'm in the middle of a raid, he said, clearly impatient. Is this an emergency? A raid. I was paying his health insurance while he was in the middle of a raid at 2 p.m. Hello, Andre, I said. I used my old head nurse voice. The one I used when a doctor was failing a patient. The one that meant no nonsense. I'm calling to inform you of 2 changes to your financial portfolio. A beat of silence. The shouting from his game suddenly quieted. He'd muted it. My financial portfolio? He scoffed, but there was a tremor of nerves in it. What are you talking about? First, I said, my words precise and sharp, your $500 monthly stipend has been canceled, effective immediately. This month's transfer will not be processed. Second, the private health insurance policy I have been paying for you for the last 2 years will be canceled at midnight tonight. I suggest you look into estate plan immediately. I heard a loud clatter, the sound of his game controller hitting the floor. What? He yelled, his voice cracking. Mom, you can't. You can't just do that. My rent is due. I have a doctor's appointment next week. I depend on that help. Yes, Andre, I know you do, I said. My voice is cold as ice. How interesting. Just this morning, in your comment, You said you only came to my house for the food and money, as if it were an inconvenience. Now it seems you do need that help. Mom, that, he was sputtering, panicked. That was just part of the joke. You weren't supposed to see that. You're overreacting. Your sister already tried that excuse, Andre. It didn't work. Now you listen to me. I picked up the red pen, tapping the ledger. We also need to discuss a payment plan for the $17,000 you owe me. 17,000? What the hell are you talking about? 5,000 for the car I bought you, and 12,000 for the 2 years of stipends you've received. That stipend, as of today, is reclassified as an interest-bearing loan. You can't do that. You're insane. I'll be expecting your payment proposal by Friday, I continued, as if he hadn't spoken, along with your sister's. I hung up before his next shriek could begin. 2 down. I looked at the ledger. My gaze moved to the last name on my immediate list, Marcus. I did not wait for my phone to ring again. I looked at the ledger, at the name Marcus. I dialed his number. He answered on the second ring, his voice booming with that false salesman cheerfulness I'd grown to hate. Evelyn, just the person I wanted to talk to. Listen, I've got a new shipment of transmissions coming in. Big ones. He chuckled. I need to swing by tomorrow and drop them off in your garage. Hope you've got room. He didn't ask. He told me. The arrogance of it. The man who just publicly mocked my appearance was now telling me he would be claiming more of my space. Perfect, Marcus, I said, my voice surprisingly bright. That works out just perfectly. Great, he boomed. Knew you'd be a pal. I'll see you around 10 a.m. Yes, 10 a.m. is fine, I continued, my voice smooth as silk. You can swing by right after you pick up all your old things. I need your entire inventory out of my garage by the end of the week, Marcus. The booming cheer vanished. It was replaced by a stunned, breathy silence. What? He finally sputtered. What are you talking about, Evelyn? That's my whole business in there. That's thousands of dollars of stuff. Where am I supposed to put it? His voice started to rise, hitting that panicked, indignant tone I knew so well. You can't just kick me out. We had an arrangement. Our arrangement is over, I said, my voice now matching the cold, hard steel of the transmissions he was storing. Where you put your inventory sounds like a business problem, Marcus. A problem for you to solve. Evelyn, this is insane. Oh, and one more thing. I cut him off. When you come by to clear it all out, you'll need to bring a certified check, made out to me. A check? For what? For $14,400, I said, reading the number directly from a ledger. That's for the 48 months of back rent you owe me. I've already drawn up the invoice. Owe you? We're family. You also never said anything about publicly mocking my appearance online. Circumstances change, Marcus. So do arrangements. I'll be waiting for that check. I hung up. I did not wait to hear the curses, the threats. 3 down. I sat back in my chair at the head of the dining room table. The house was silent. I folded my hands over the open ledger. I knew the silence wouldn't last. I had kicked the hornet's nest, and now I would just wait for them to come flying home. I did not have to wait long, less than an hour. I imagined there was a flurry of frantic, panicked phone calls. Mom's crazy. She cut off my money. She's demanding rent. And then I heard it. A car slamming its brakes on the street. A car door slamming shut. Then another. A second door slamming, hard enough to rattle the pictures in my hallway. And a third. They had coordinated. They were coming as a pack. My front door burst open. No knock. They never knocked. This was their house after all. The place they came to be fed and funded. Rhonda stormed in first. Her face was red and blotchy, her eyes wide with a rage and panic. Mascara was streaked down her cheeks. You actually did it, she shrieked, her voice high and sharp in the foyer. My card was declined at the gas station, in front of everyone. Andre was right behind her, his face pale with disbelief. You can't cut off my insurance. I have an appointment. What the hell are you doing? Marcus barged in last, and he looked like he was about to have a stroke. His face was a dark, purplish red. $14,000, he bellowed, stabbing a thick finger in my direction. Are you out of your mind? You're trying to ruin my business. Ruin me. And then came Monique, my daughter-in-law, slinking in behind them, wringing her hands. She looked like she was about to cry. Evelyn, please, she whimpered. Tell them you're joking. You're scaring everyone. The four of them. Standing in the archway of my dining room, a family firing squad, all of them shouting at once. I remained seated at the head of my table. The ledger was still open in front of me. While I had been waiting, I had poured myself a cup of hot Earl Grey tea. I didn't use the old ceramic mug. I used my best china, the set I saved for company. I lifted the delicate porcelain cup to my lips, my hand perfectly steady. I took a slow, deliberate sip. The bergamot was very calming. Mom, are you listening to me? Rhonda shrieked, my calm clearly driving her insane. This isn't you. You're overreacting. Overreacting. Andre latched onto the word, finally finding his footing. That's right. All because of a stupid joke online. You're ruining our lives for a joke. Evelyn, please, Monique pleaded, using her soft, fake victim voice. We're family. You're scaring us to death. This is all just a big misunderstanding. She's just being dramatic, Andre muttered. And there was that word, dramatic, the word they used to describe my pain. She just wants attention. I set the teacup down on its saucer. The small, sharp clink of porcelain on porcelain cut through the noise. The room fell silent. I looked up and met their eyes, one by one. Four faces, contorted in anger and panic. It stops being a joke, I said, my voice low and quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. When it cost $91,000. You could have heard a pin drop. The silence was absolute. The color drained from Rhonda's face. Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish. 91,000. The number hung in the air, a physical, heavy thing they could not ignore. Just as Rhonda was about to shriek the word, "What?" the doorbell rang. A sharp, clear chime. All four of them startled, turning to look at the front door. I was the only one who didn't. I knew they would call for backup. Ah, I said, taking another sip of my tea. The intervention. I was not surprised. I had been expecting the reinforcements. I rose slowly from my chair. The silk dress rustled. The four of them, Rhonda, Andre, Marcus, and Monique, watched me, their faces a strange mix of anger and confusion. I walked past them, my heels making a sharp, decisive click-clack on the hardwood floor. I opened my front door, and there they were. Phase 2 of the attack, my sister Shirley, and my sister-in-law Valerie. Rhonda had, of course, called them. Shirley bustled in first, her face puckered in a perfect mask of fake concern. She swept right past me, not a word of greeting. Rhonda called us, she said, her voice dripping with pity. She said you're not well, Evelyn, that you're having an episode. She marched right into the dining room as if she owned the place. Valerie followed, slower, more judgmental. She paused in front of me. She looked me up and down, her eyes lingering on the emerald green dress and the red lipstick. A small sneer of contempt flickered on her lips. Evelyn, what is all this nonsense? She said. You've got these children worried sick. She too walked past me. I closed the door, slowly. The deadbolt made a final heavy thunk. When I returned to my dining room, it had become a courtroom. They had regrouped, 6 of them, standing in a semicircle around my place at the head of the table, waiting for me. They had formed a wall. 6 people I had loved, cooked for, and supported, all of them in my home, to tell me that I was insane. "Evelyn," Shirley began, stepping forward. She reached for my hand. I pulled my hand back and placed it on my open ledger. She winced, but she continued, her voice all syrupy and false. "Honey, we're worried about you. All this money talk. It's not like you. Are you forgetting things? Maybe you're confused." Andre seized on it. "I think so too." I told Rhonda, "I think Mom's getting confused." "This isn't healthy, Evelyn," Valerie cut in, her voice sharp as a knife. She was always the sharp one. "You are destroying your family, tearing them apart. Over a poll? A stupid internet joke?" She leaned in, her voice dropping. "You're 72. This kind of vindictiveness, it's a sign of decline. Maybe you need professional help." "I see, Mom," Andre said, his voice victorious. "Everyone thinks you're acting crazy. It's not just us." Rhonda, seeing her advantage, stepped forward, her tears gone. "Mom, please," she said. "Stop this. You're embarrassing us. I tried to use my card." She stopped, as Marcus clearly shot her a look. "Mom," she started again. "Just be our mom. Stop this. Game." I looked at their faces, 6 of them, all in agreement, all here for the intervention. And for one single terrible second, the old doubt crept in. The doubt they had planted and watered for decades. Am I wrong? Am I just a dramatic, senile old woman? Am I destroying my family over a wounded ego? They saw the hesitation on my face. They moved in closer. "Evelyn," Shirley whispered, "let us help you. Let Andre take you to—" "I'll take you to the doctor, Mom," Andre said, his voice now full of condescending righteousness. I felt the walls closing in. I was surrounded. Their voices were a drone. Confused. I need help. Vindictive. Destroying the family. Just a joke. This was it. The false ending. This was the scene where I break, I cry, I apologize. This was the scene where I say, "You're right. I'm sorry. I'll transfer the money." I felt my breath get shallow. I was cornered. And just as the noise rose to a crescendo, my phone sitting silently on the ledger began to ring. It wasn't a gentle buzz. It was a loud, piercing electronic trill. It cut through the shouting like a fire alarm. Everyone stopped. Every eye snapped to the phone. I looked down at the screen. An unknown number. An Atlanta area code. I looked up. I held up one hand. The hand Shirley had tried to grab. It was perfectly steady. The doubt was gone. The icy certainty was back. "Excuse me," I said, my voice perfectly level, cutting through the sudden, heavy silence. "I have to take this." I looked at the 6 faces surrounding me. Their expressions were smug, expectant. They thought this was the final blow. They thought they had the confused old woman cornered. My finger moved to the screen. I pressed answer. Then I pressed the speaker button. A loud click echoed in the tense silence of my dining room. "Hello, Evelyn Price speaking," I said, my voice perfectly calm. A moment of static, and then a warm professional voice filled the room, a voice we all recognized. "Hello, Ms. Evelyn Price. My name is Maria Sanchez from The Morning Buzz on WXTA Radio." I wish I'd had a camera. I watched Rhonda's face. Every drop of blood drained from it. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. WXTA, the biggest, most listened to morning show in Atlanta. I saw Andre's jaw drop. I saw Marcus, who looked like he was about to be physically sick right on my dining room carpet. Shirley and Valerie just looked confused, as if they couldn't process what was happening. Maria's voice continued, bright and empathetic. Ms. Price, I know this is completely out of the blue, and I hope I'm not disturbing you, but our producer saw the poll your daughter Rhonda posted about you online. Rhonda made a small choked sound like a dying bird. She put her hand to her throat. Well, it's gone viral, Maria said. We've been tracking the comments, and the community response is just massive. To be frank, Ms. Price, people are outraged on your behalf. Outraged, Shirley whispered, the color draining from her face now, too. We're getting flooded with calls, Maria went on, from women, from sons and daughters, all supporting you. They're calling you a warrior. They're calling you an icon. We were wondering, would you be willing to come on our show tomorrow morning? The room was dead silent. I could hear the faint hum of my refrigerator in the kitchen. I could hear Andre's shallow, wheezing breath. They had tried to make me a private joke. They had failed. I had just become a public cause. We'd like to offer you our platform, Maria said, her voice sincere and passionate, for you to come on, live, and tell your side of the story. They had me cornered. They had called me senile, vindictive, and crazy. They had tried to gaslight me into silence. They thought they could humiliate me in the digital shadows. Now the brightest spotlight in the city was being offered to me as a weapon. I looked around the table, slowly. I met each of their horrified, pleading gazes. I looked at Rhonda, her hand now clapped over her mouth, her eyes screaming, "No, don't. Mom, please." I looked at Andre, who looked like he was about to faint. I looked at Marcus, who was clearly, rapidly, calculating the cost of his business reputation evaporating overnight. I looked at Shirley and Valerie, who finally understood. This was not an episode. This was a public execution. A slow, bright, genuine smile spread across my face. It was the first real smile I'd felt in days. It reached my eyes. I felt the warmth of it. It was the smile of a woman who had just found her power. I leaned toward the phone, past the open ledger, past the $91,000 in red ink. "Why, yes, Maria," I said, my voice rich and warm, the irritating voice they hated so much. "I would love to. What time should I be there?" The radio show was not just an interview. It was a confession. I sat in that studio, across from Maria Sanchez. The big black microphone didn't scare me. I had faced down 6 wolves in my own dining room. This was nothing, and I spoke. I did not yell. I did not cry. I was not dramatic. I simply told my truth. In my irritating voice, I told them about the poll, and then I told them why it had happened. I told them about being a widow at 42, working double shifts. I told them about the dinners I skipped to pay for college tuitions. I told them about being called boring after a lifetime of sacrifice. I told them about my life's stories being called monologues and melodramas. I told them about the $91,000. I didn't say it with anger. I said it as a fact, the price of being taken for granted. Maria just listened in silence. But the phone lines did not. They exploded. They lit up like a Christmas tree. Maria signaled to her producer. "Ms. Evelyn," she said, her voice thick, "we're going to the calls." The first call was from a woman named Rose. "Ms. Evelyn," she sobbed, "I am 65. My son treats me the same way. I thought it was my fault. Thank you. Thank you for giving me courage." The next call. "Ms. Price, I'm a man. I'm listening on my way to work. I just realized I've been treating my mother exactly the way your son treated you. Oh my God. I have to pull over." It went on for an hour. They canceled their other segments. My story took over the show. When I walked out of that radio station, I was no longer Evelyn, the lonely old woman on the corner. I was something else. I was a voice. The fallout from my family was not abstract. It was fast. And it was brutal. Our community listens to WXTA. Marcus's business, built on word of mouth, evaporated overnight. Our neighbors, our friends, the people he had laughed with online, they had heard the $14,400 figure. They had heard the arrogance. His calls went unanswered. His contracts were canceled. Andre showed up to his consulting office the next day. The poll, now infamous, had been emailed around. People didn't look at him. They whispered as he walked by. Melodramas, food and money. He lost his one big contract by the end of the week. Rhonda suffered the worst. The social shunning. The other mothers at Keisha's school, the ones she tried so hard to impress. They looked at her like she was something unclean. The mom who posted the poll. She was uninvited from parties. She was dropped from the group chats. They had tried to make me an outcast. Instead, they had become the outcasts themselves. They came back, not together, in a storm of rage, one by one. Rhonda came first, at night. She knocked. When I opened the door, she was not the proud lioness. She looked small. Her face was puffy from crying. She didn't say anything. She just stood there and shook. Then Andre. He sat in his car outside my house for an hour. Finally, he came to the door. He couldn't look me in the eye. "Mom," he mumbled, staring at the doormat. I don't know what to do. I lost everything." I did not open my checkbook. I did not open my arms. I gave them one choice. "We will go to family therapy," I told each of them, all of us, "or we will have nothing left to say." It was agonizing. The first sessions were a mess of accusations and tears. They were angry. They felt they were the victims. But the therapist, a wise, tough woman, did not let them escape. She made them read the poll out loud. She made them talk about the $91,000. Slowly, so slowly, the armor of their anger cracked. Underneath, it wasn't remorse. Not yet. It was shame. And then they started to pay me. It wasn't in a lump sum. It was $100 from Andre one month, $50 from Rhonda the next. Marcus sold his truck and gave me a check for $1,000. It wasn't about the money. It was about the act, the acknowledgement of the debt. A year has passed. I'm standing in my garage. It's clean. The oil stains are gone. The greasy junk is a long gone memory. Sunlight is streaming in through a new skylight I installed. It is my art studio. My easel is in the center. A canvas is on it, full of bright colors, yellow, orange, blue. My book, The Price of Silence, was published in the spring. It sold surprisingly well. I give talks. I run workshops. I tell other women how to find their own irritating voices. I hear a soft knock on the side door. I turn. It's Rhonda. She's holding a pie. Homemade. "Hey, Mom," she says softly. "I was on my way home. I made your lemon meringue. I know it's not as good as yours, but I tried." "Thank you, Rhonda," I say, and I mean it. Our relationship is not what it was. That blind, all-giving love is gone. It was burned away in the fire of that poll. It has been replaced by something new, something cautious, more honest. It is built on the firm, clear, immovable boundaries I drew in red ink in my leather ledger. I am at peace. I have forgiven them for my own sake, but I have not forgotten. The ledger is still in my desk drawer, not as a weapon anymore, as a reminder that my dignity is not a resource to be tapped. It is my own. Evelyn may be gone, but her courage and dignity still live on through the books she wrote and the women she inspired. Thank you, my dear friends, for walking this road with me. If this story touched your heart, I'd truly love to hear from you. Tell me, What city or country are you watching from, dear? Rate this story from 0 to 10 so I can see how far finding your voice can travel. Feels like sitting on the porch with family, just heart to heart. May God's peace and strength be with you always.